Thank you, guys.
Your hands are over the thing.
That would explain a lot.
In the past few years, school shootings have been highlighted amongst media outlets and have been highly politicized in the United States. Regardless of which side of the aisle an individual is on, one can agree that these shootings happen too often, and there must be something the nation can do to slow down these horrific tragedies. According to TheGuardian.com, there have been 8 school shootings in 2018 alone. As stated, there are things that political leaders can do in order to slow down school shooters, if not nearly stop these shootings completely. Among these actions, the U.S. can increase background checks, screen students more frequently, increase security in the schools, and even possibly arm and train teachers. Once we become more nonpartisan, the U.S. can progress and hopefully get past these events.
Violence is an increasingly growing problem amongst our youth and frankly one of the biggest problems for our country right now. We have protocols in place that need to be changed, and we do have new ones that are now coming in. But it takes more than that. It takes a group effort from the schools, the students, law enforcement, and the government. It takes more than just being aware to evaluate these threats and handle them properly. And that's what these new protocols are in place for. The FBI has placed a school shooter threat assessment in place, and I believe that came in the last 2 years. That involves 6 steps. And number 1 being build an interdisciplinary system and a trained team involving the staff and the law enforcement inside of the school. 2, create climate of trust between the students and the staff, an area where students can come to the staff and let them know if there's problems going on. 3, assess the threats, the type of threat and the risk level. Meaning if it's minor, then that's what we need the counselors for. Major, that's what we need the law enforcement to be involved with. We need to consider the factors shaping the students' behavior and decisions and figure out what's going on in the schools and at home that's causing these problems. We need to determine and implement interventions in good time, meaning take action before it's too late, which has been a concern lately and a big problem with the Florida shooting, for example, where we knew what was going on and didn't take action. Last of all, we need to provide supportive interventions to potential offenders, meaning we're not trying to take out these kids, we're not trying to hurt them, we're trying to figure out what's wrong with them, what's causing these things before they hurt themselves and other students.
There are a number of ways that we can guard the physical parameter of a school campus. Some of the tools that we're seeing used today are walk-through metal detectors, metal detecting wands. We also are seeing a lot of heavy use of security cameras and automated door systems with lockdown capabilities. In addition to these measures, we're also seeing some schools enforce stricter dress codes, and they're also requiring students and staff to wear identification at all times. In a survey conducted by the U.S. Department of Education, as I have here, and the National Center of Education Statistics, it's reported that for the 2015-16 school year, around 89% of public high schools controlled access to the campus. 94% were monitored by security cameras, while only 10% of our public school system was performing random metal detector checks. The total of all grade schools that reported random metal detector checks for the 15 and 16 school year was only 4.5%, down from 7.2% for the 1999 and 2000 school year. 4.5% is a very low number, but there may be some positive changes coming soon. In an article published just this February by Star Telegram, it's a publication that's based in Fort Worth, representative for the United States, Kay Granger, actually intended to file the Securing Children in Schools Act of 2018 the very next week. This act would create a federal grant program to help pay for and install metal detectors in all of our public schools. That's elementary, middle, and high schools. To quote her, she said, "Whenever we decided to make airports safe from terrorists, we installed metal detectors and dramatically increased safety. It's time we do the same thing for our schools." Granger, who is a former teacher, also stated that metal detectors have proven to be very effective in our airports. And according to the official website of the U.S. Congress, on March 1st, 2018, the Securing Children in Schools Act was in fact introduced to the House of Representatives by Congresswoman Kay Granger. And then on March 21st, the act, also known as H.R. .5135, was referred to the Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, Homeland Security, and Investigations.
Alright, so once all the preventative actions have been expensed and there is in fact a shooter in the school or somebody attacking the school, the last defense is internal defense system. So you have that, whether that be teachers, whether that be a school resource officer, even schools, they'll arm janitors and stuff like that. So every second that there's a shooter inside is another second that somebody could lose their life, and it takes about 3 to 10 minutes for police officers to arrive on a scene of an active shooter. And as recent as March 20th in Maryland, there was actually a resource officer, which is a police officer inside the school, that responded to a shooting within the minute, and his name is Blaine Gaskell. I think there's a picture of him. Next slide. Yeah, so his sergeant had in fact said that if he did not respond as quickly as he did, more people would have been injured and possibly died. So according to a poll, I'm not saying you should arm all teachers. In fact, only 18% actually are willing and able to be armed, according to a Gallup panel of 497 teachers that voted on this. So what I am saying though is if we could arm maybe 10% of teachers, that would make a drastic difference, because there's 1 student, or there's 10 students per every faculty member in a school, and if we can arm 10% of those teachers, then that's 1 gun for every 100 students, which in my opinion could make a really big difference. So pretty much if we could just add 1 more person with a gun into schools and it could save 1 life across the board, then I think we're making a step in the right direction.
So the solutions to the security issues is achievable through fundraising. The only way schools can upgrade to these security measures is if they have the money to afford them. Students, faculty, parents, and other advocates for these new security measures can be used in projects like the March for Our Lives that advocates for gun control. With walks like these, schools can get donations for the new security measures, and that's by Joe Randall. And there are also scheduled school walkouts and for gun control, and schools can also get donations through that as well for their new security. And the only solution to upgrading the security in schools is obtaining the funds to afford them. Therefore, fundraising is the most effective way for schools to afford these major security upgrades to protect the students and faculty.
Okay, so according to the Bureau of Justice, schools have been very proactive on changing procedures in order to stop school shootings. The Bureau of Justice states that in 2003, 79% of schools set a plan in place to prepare for a school shooting, and that number increased in 2016 to 92%. By increasing background checks, screening students, increasing school security, and training teachers, hopefully the U.S. can put the majority of school shootings in the past where they belong.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Sorry if that ran a little long.
Little red line.
Thank you
Yeah.
guys. Appreciate you guys.
Please, definitely.
Thank you.